Well, my name is Stan Benedict, and I'm the editor therapy for the journal Medical Physics, and I'll be reviewing the third part of this presentation, which is manuscript review. You've already ideally been presented manuscript preparation by Dr. John Boone, and then manuscript submission by our managing editor, Al Thomas. So this section just deals with the review process, which is the associate editor and the referees and possibly the deputy editor as well. So we actually, for this process, have a new editorial model. The manuscript review for the new editorial model involves a lead editor, deputy editor, and the core of the peer review process is written critique by an associate editor supported by 2 referees, at least 2. Manuscript review also typically involves a revision of the process where authors resubmit a revised manuscript after receiving comments from the review team and adjusting that manuscript to address or refute the critiques of the reviewers. So the new editorial model for medical physics, you can see there's an editor-in-chief, and there's the editor of therapy, the therapy section. That's myself. We don't have an editor technically for diagnostic or imaging because Dr. Boone is an expert at that. So he wears 2 hats, let's just say. In any case, below the 2 of us, there are 15 deputy editors, and then there are hundreds of associate editors, and literally thousands of reviewers across the globe who are medical physicists. So the decision authority, though, is at the top, certainly the editor-in-chief and the editor, but in general, the deputy editors are critical in this decision process. Here are some images of our deputy editors, and not surprisingly, they all have different expertise. When a manuscript is submitted, you can actually choose which one of the deputy editors you would like to oversee your manuscript. In some instances, people actually do it geographically. They may want someone from China, they may want someone from Europe, etc. In some other instances, perhaps more recommended, would be to identify your area of interest. Is it therapy? Is it diagnostic imaging? Is it PET imaging? It's nuclear medicine, etc. So the core of the peer review process has been around for a long, long time. We haven't changed that. That's the associate editor and 2 referees. So that's the manuscript review triad. It's unchanged for a long, long time. So in general, what happens is the deputy editor assigns an associate editor who then subsequently assigns reviewers. Hopefully, ideally, within about 2 weeks, the critiques return. So from the 2 reviewers back to the associate editor, and then the deputy editor reviews the associate editor and the 2 referees' comments and makes a decision. So in our model, we actually are single-blinded. That means that the authors of the manuscript don't know who is reviewing their manuscript, but we do know but those who are reviewing it do know who the authors are. So an unblinded review, just to oversee, make sure that we all understand, an unblinded review means that both sides know who they are. So the authors know who the reviewers are, and the reviewers know who the author is. In a single-blinded review, which again is what medical physics is, the authors know who the deputy editor is, by the way, because they will have submitted to that person, and but they will not be familiar with who the referees are. But the referee will know who the author is. Double-blinded, to be perfectly honest, that means the authors and reviewers don't know anything about each other. So here is a website for referee guidelines, and I put this in there, and you're welcome to check that at your leisure. What I want to do is go over some of the referee instructions, because I think these will be instructive for the authors to understand what the process is. So number one is how to become a referee. Number two, the review process, the timeliness, the journal scope, conflict of interest, ethics policies, staying anonymous, the referee checklist. This is a key thing, all the different items that need to be examined, and tips for new referees. So let's start with how to become a referee. Something we're always looking for in the journal, because this is a peer review process and we are looking from people from all over the globe. So obviously Latin America is critically important in this process. So to do this, log on to this site that's been listed, and so you'll have PDFs of this available so you can refer back to them. Scroll to the bottom of the home page and modify your profile, password, update your institution, make sure that we have all the correct information, and identify 5 taxonomy terms. This is important. You don't want to identify and say that I can review 100 things. Usually the best idea here is to pick out about 5, and then those will be the manuscripts that you would receive. The review process. Well, the 10-step review process toward acceptance for publication, here are steps 1 through 5. The author submits the manuscript. We have gone over that. The manuscript undergoes a pre-review by the editor-in-chief and the deputy editor to determine if the manuscript meets quality and scope standards of the journal. If these criteria are met, an associate editor is selected by the deputy editor. Once selected, the associate editor then selects 2 referees who are considered to be knowledgeable. Oftentimes, these might be someone who was in the references of the manuscript. The referees then agree to the review process. Each of these steps takes time. Some can take longer than others. So steps 6 through 10 of the review process, the referees review the manuscript and write a meaningful critique of it, and ideally submit that within 2 weeks. The referee critique for the author should not use the terms accept and reject, because the referee doesn't determine that. That's determined at the highest level. The AE and DE need to synthesize the critiques from both the reviewers and make a final decision. The associate editor evaluates both referee comments, provides their own critique, and forwards all of this to the deputy editor, one of the 15 deputy editors, and ideally the one that was identified during the submission process. The deputy editor makes a decision based on manuscript quality, science, impact, and the comments made by the referees. And then the decision letter is sent to the author by the editor-in-chief, and referees again continue to remain blinded to the authors forever. Timeliness. Obviously, this is an important issue. We want our journal to maintain a timely and appropriate calendar for getting journals reviewed. So the key here is to please respond promptly to any request to serve as a referee. The longer that sits in your mailbox, days go by, we miss out on opportunities to get this expedited. Referee critiques should be completed within 14 days from the date of acceptance. Requests for additional review time should be routed to the medphys@wiley.com. Basically, these go to our managing editor, and she hopefully, with much understanding, will be able to grant and extend a deadline. Journal scope. This is important. So the scope of medical physics evolves as new technologies and methodologies filter into our field. It has been said that the field of medical physics is actually defined by what is published in the journal. Many manuscripts are testing the limits of the field of physics, medical physics, and are forwarded for peer review to gain important insight into the issue of scope from the selected reviewers. So we gradually do expand the scope of our journal, and this is important. Conflict of interest. Conflict of interest is a very key and fundamental for the peer review process. Before you accept an assignment, you should confirm that you have no conflicts of interest with the article's authors. This is why actually double blinding can be problematic. So you want to make sure that you're not employed at the same institution, that you mentored any of the authors, could financially benefit or a relative or someone that a reasonable person would not question your impartiality. Ethics. We have ethics guidelines also published by the American Association of Physicists in Medicine, and you can identify those. These are the ones that have been identified from our publisher, Wiley, but you also can identify these guidelines from the AAPM and from the Board of Directors. And they're also available from the Scientific Integrity Committee, which does evaluate any issues that might arise in either of our journals. Staying anonymous. So you're not just anonymous as a referee during that simple process. It is expected that this is not disclosed forever. So avoid including anything in your review that would reveal your identity or those of other reviewers, like adding a signature to your review comments. Obviously, this means that referees must never communicate directly with the authors regarding a manuscript under review. So this is important, yes. Here's a referee checklist that I think is real important. A lot of this is related to the presentation on manuscript preparation. So carefully review each of the following. Make sure that your figures are appropriate, the tables are appropriate, you're using SI units, your references are in accordance with the guidelines. If you have an appendix, then make sure that it's in accordance with the guidelines, and any supplementary material. Often this might be data that would be useful for the referees. Tips for new referees. The referee's critique should be organized into two sections: general comments, specific comments. The general comments section should first describe the scientific aspects of the manuscript in 2 or 3 sentences, proving and providing sufficient detail to let the authors know that the referee understands what the manuscript is all about. Overall, the tone of the referee's critique should be courteous and helpful. So actually, Medical Physics Journal has launched a new referee review form and referee guidelines, and so it has an overall rating and assessment aspect to it. And you can see here that we break things down into 5 categories. So there's the overall recommendation: accept with minor revision, decision deferred, reject, with possibility to submit, perhaps very often, by the way, to our sister journal, which is more clinical, and to reject outright. So is it good science, great news, new ideas, high quality manuscript? Is it a good manuscript, worthy of consideration? Are the scientific methods and results not well explained? And low scientific value. So you can see ranking from 1 to 5. And in terms of scope, manuscript is in the mainstream topics, certain relevance to the field of medical physics, pushing the boundaries, which again is still okay, and then clinically useful but not interesting scientifically. And so that's another, like I said, very commonly done, refer to our Journal of Applied Clinical Medical Physics. Not in the scope of medical physics, suggest authors submit elsewhere. This is important. how's the English? The last thing you want to do after you have prepared your manuscript is make sure that someone, a native speaker or a good editor, has gone through it and make sure that it's high quality English and that it's well written, because otherwise that can lead to what we call a desk rejection. That means it does not go through the review process. It's reviewed only at the upper level, and the English is considered not appropriate, and it's rejected at that point. Is the title appropriate? This is a key issue because titles are actually used in promoting and in describing journals across many different media. And so you want to spend and devote some time to the title. It's interesting how some authors, it seems like they did not spend much time trying to come up with a very precise, concise, and accurate title that's of reasonable length and adequately descriptive. And then the free text evaluation of the manuscript is also important. Again, the general comments, specific comments, and then grammatical comments. So I just want to make sure that you spend a lot of time coming up with a good title. This actually, for many people, the best titles do take a little while to really hone them down and make sure that you're describing it accurately and not playing up some new technology that doesn't have much to do with the manuscript. All right. Oh, and key. No vendor names. No commercial names are allowed in the title. A few more links to consider. Again, these are the author guidelines. These links are easily and readily available. And then there's the AE guidelines as well through the AAPM. Muchísimas gracias. All right. Buena suerte.